Picture this. You're standing in the middle of a street. It's morning. There are more humans around you right now than you have ever seen in your entire life, combined. The noise is unlike anything your ears have ever processed. Something screams overhead on a metal track. A smell hits you that has no name in any language you know. Hundreds of strangers walk past you without looking at you once. You don't know where you are. You don't know what year it is. And you have nothing. No tools, no tribe, no name that any system on Earth recognizes. Now here's the question that should keep you up at night. Could you survive? Not the heat, not the cold, not the predators. Those you'd handle fine. You've been doing that your whole life. The thing most likely to kill you in this city is something researchers didn't even take seriously until recently. Something that shows up in almost no survival guide ever written. And something that every single person walking past you right now is slowly dying from, just at a much slower rate. We'll get to that. But first, let's drop you in. It's June 18th, 8:14 in the morning. Roosevelt Avenue, Jackson Heights, Queens, New York City. Population 8.6 million. Ambient noise at rush hour, 90 decibels. That's a lawnmower, running continuously from every direction at once. You've never heard anything like this in your life. Your nervous system is doing something it has spent 300,000 years being trained to do. It's scanning for threats. It finds 17 of them in the first 4 seconds. But here's where things get interesting. Most of those things are not actually threats. Your brain just doesn't have the files yet to tell the difference between a bus and a predator, between a stranger checking their phone and a stranger about to attack, between a traffic light and something worth running from. So your brain does the only thing it knows how to do. It looks at faces. And this is where your ancient wiring stops being a liability and becomes your most valuable survival tool in the modern world. Think about what you've actually been doing for 300,000 years. Not hunting, not building, not farming. Those are skills. The real skill. The one that kept your bloodline alive through ice ages and droughts and famines and migrations was reading other humans. Knowing who was safe, knowing who wasn't, knowing which stranger at the edge of an unfamiliar camp might share food and which one might not. That skill doesn't stop working in Queens. Within 2 minutes of standing on that corner, you've already found someone. You didn't decide to. You just followed a woman whose shoulders dropped instead of squared, whose body opened instead of closed, whose eyes did something ancient and mammalian that no language has ever needed a word for because we've always just known what it means. She doesn't know you're following her. You're not threatening. You're doing exactly what 300,000 years of social engineering programmed you to do. Orient towards safety. She leads you somewhere warm, and that's step 1. The subway is step 2, and it's where most people assume you'd completely fall apart. Here's the surprising part. You don't. In 2015, a team of researchers mapped the microbial landscape of the New York City subway system. They found DNA from more than 1,600 distinct species on the handrails and seats and door handles. For a modern commuter, this is invisible. Background noise. Their immune systems have been industrially coddled since birth. For you, your gut has been drinking from rivers and eating with hands that touch soil and animal hide since you were old enough to walk. The subway isn't a threat. It's just a different biosphere. The real challenge on the subway isn't biological, it's directional. But here's what researchers keep underestimating about ancient humans. You are extraordinarily good at reading maps, not paper maps, environmental maps, paths, junctions, loops. The color-coded subway diagram on the wall is, at its core, the same visual logic as a river system. Same structure, different material. You follow the majority. You emerge somewhere useful. And now you're hungry. Imagine this. You haven't eaten anything that came in a package, ever. Your gut microbiome, the 38 trillion microorganisms living in your digestive system, has been maintained on roughly 80 to 100 grams of fiber per day. Tubers, berries, roots, seeds. That's the diet of the Hadza, people of northern Tanzania, one of the last full-time forager populations on Earth. The average adult in America eats fewer than 16 grams of fiber a day. Now picture someone handing you a 64-ounce fountain soda for the first time in your life. You drink it. Your gut has absolutely no idea what is happening. The glucose spike hits your brain like a signal flare. Your body interprets it the way it would interpret eating an entire hive of honey, a massive, unrepeatable windfall that requires immediate rest to process. You sit down on the sidewalk. People walk around you. Nobody stops. And here is where the city reveals its first real wall, and it has nothing to do with biology. It's made of paper. Every system designed to keep humans alive in New York City in 2026 requires documentation. A name that exists in a database, a date of birth that can be typed into a required field, a document matching a federal list that employers call Form Y9. Without those, you are invisible to the infrastructure, not in a poetic way. Incorporation in a very literal way. Most shelters require basic ID at intake. Emergency clinics can treat you, but billing, follow-up, and prescription access all need a patient record. Even a library card, which will turn out to be the single most important object in this entire story, requires a mailing address and a name. The city looks from the outside like a place built for survival, and in some ways, it is. But there's a layer underneath the city that most people never see, and it was built by communities, not systems. A Sikh Gurudwara in Richmond Hill serves langar every day. Dal, roti, sweet halwa, no questions asked, to anyone who walks through the door. This isn't charity in the modern sense. It's an ancient obligation that a religious community decided was non-negotiable in a city where the official systems fail regularly. The Bowery Mission on the Lower East Side runs meals at 8 in the morning, 12:30 in the afternoon, and 6 at night, 365 days a year. A Catholic parish on 82nd Street in Jackson Heights has a night program that offers cots and soup, and the soup comes with eye contact from the person who serves it, which turns out to matter more than the caloric content because it's the first social signal in 14 hours that reads like something you recognize from home. This is not the backup grid. For roughly 70,000 people on any given night in New York City, this is the primary grid. And for you, it's also something else. It's the entrance to a tribe. But here is where the entire story changes. Everything up to this point has been about physical survival. Food, shelter, navigation. Your body handling the city like an organism encountering a new environment. Stressed, but adapting. What comes next is the part most people never hear about. And it's the part that determines whether you're still alive in 6 months. The single most important physical object in surviving 2026 as an unregistered person is a library card. Not a weapon, not a phone, not cash. A rectangle of paper with a barcode, issued free, requiring only a letter from a community organization confirming a name and a local contact. Think about that for a second. That card unlocks a bathroom without a purchase requirement, a chair at a charging station where you can sit for 4 hours without being moved along, access to an ESL program on the second floor where a teacher named Mr. Ahmed taps the days of the week into the table with a pen. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and waits. The vocabulary that follows isn't random. It's the vocabulary of appointment, of shift, of schedule. The temporal grammar of a city that runs on synchronized clock time instead of solar cycles and seasons. Learning it is the difference between a first week and a second one. But here's a problem nobody warned you about. The screens. A standard smartphone display refreshes 90 times per second. A large commercial television produces upward of 500 nit of brightness into a dim room. The average person in this city interacts with their phone, tapping, swiping, or just staring, approximately 2,600 times per day. Your visual system evolved to track movement across 5 kilometers of open landscape, which means it is exceptionally, almost violently good at being captured by a 15-second video loop on a screen in a way that is nearly impossible to disengage from voluntarily. Researchers who study sleep, people who measure melatonin production and light sensitivity in populations around the world, discovered something surprising. The Hadza don't sleep in one continuous 8-hour block. They never did. They move through lighter cycles throughout the night, often with at least one group member awake at any given moment. But they don't fight LED light sources at midnight. Artificial light delays melatonin production in a brain from 20,000 years ago at exactly the same rate it does in a brain from Cleveland. After 2 or 3 city nights without light discipline, your attention degrades. Your reaction time slows. The margin of error on a busy intersection narrows in ways that matter when an orange delivery truck takes a left turn without checking the crosswalk. Now here's the thing that most people completely miss. The city is full of people who are watching for you, not to help you, to find you. The man with the unmarked van who offers a bed for tonight. The contractor who pays you in advance and says the rest comes tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. The driver with the unmarked fare. These aren't random predators. They're calibrated, tuned over years of practice, to the specific signature of someone who has no one to ask, someone who can't call anyone, someone who, if they disappear, won't show up in any missing persons database because they were never in any database at all. Most people assume that being physically capable, fast, strong, with exceptional spatial awareness would protect you from this. But that's not what happened. The protection isn't physical. It was never physical. It's social. A teenager named Camilla is the first person who plants herself between you and a turning lane you didn't see coming. She doesn't speak your language. You don't speak hers. But she grabs your arm and steps in front of you and says something short and sharp, and the truck misses you by 4 feet. A cook at a Nepali kitchen on 37th Road learns your face, says tomorrow 6, and means it for 6 Wednesdays in a row. The $60 cash at midnight isn't the point. The consistency is. The reliability. The signal that says this person sees you as a person. A caseworker at Make the Road, New York, named Ruth sits across a table from you with a form that has a required field for date of birth. You don't have one. She looks at the form and then at you and says, "Can we choose a birthday?" and types in a date, and the form submits. The ID NYC card, when it arrives, is a plastic rectangle with your photograph and a number. It unlocks a doctor's visit, a shelter bed, a transit card attached to a file with the word reliable written next to it in handwriting you'll never read. That word is the actual achievement. Now. Remember the thing we said would kill you? The thing that shows up in almost no survival guide? The thing that researchers at Brigham Young University eventually measured across 148 studies and 300,000 participants? Social isolation. It increases your mortality risk at the same rate as smoking a pack of cigarettes every day, not metaphorically. Statistically, in mortality data, in life expectancy, in the actual numbers, the forager dropped into Jackson Heights at 8:14 in the morning. On June 18th, did not die from a pathogen or a car, or a contaminated food supply, or a glucose spike, or a 90 decibel train overhead. They survived the first week because of Camilla, and the cook who said, tomorrow 6, and Ruth with the form, and Mr. Ahmed who tapped Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the table and waited. Not because the city was survivable the way a savanna is survivable, through skill and speed and knowledge of the terrain, but because the city is survivable the exact same way every human environment has ever been survivable, through other people. The forager who painted bison on cave walls 17,000 years ago was not a primitive version of you waiting for better tools. They were a fully complex human being with spatial memory, pattern recognition, social intelligence, and the capacity to earn trust in a new group quickly. All 4 of those tools still work in Queens. The cave entrance is a caseworker's doorway. The watering hole is a kitchen that's open at midnight. The tribe is assembled one face at a time. A librarian, a teenager, a cook, a woman who carries half a neighborhood in her phone. And somewhere in that library, at a table on the 2nd floor, someone is learning what Tuesday means, which raises a bigger question, one that has nothing to do with ancient humans or queens or survival statistics. The real question is this: what does it mean that in a city of 8.6 million people, the thing most likely to keep you alive is a stranger who simply decides to see you and chooses to stay?